Basta loan, global dominion.
Talon, Global Dominion.
Basta loan, global dominion.
Stallone, Global Dominion.
Stallone, Global Dominion.
Stallone, Global Dominion. Stallone, Global Dominion.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Perfect. Awesome. So yeah, so my name's Kevin Allen. I currently hold the role of Chief Community Officer at OpenExO. I'll talk a little bit about OpenExO, but later I'll give a bit more background about me personally as Kevin. So before this role, I was working at a real estate crowdfunding platform. And in fact, before that, I was actually working in the pharmaceutical industry. So I have an undergraduate pharmacy degree, and I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for a long time, and then augmented that with a business degree, and then decided to make a massive switch up from where I had been into a fintech, and then after reading the book Exponential Organizations, which is essentially pivotal in the creation of OpenExO, I realized this model is something that I think more and more people need to know about. We need to use, and that's what sort of got me into this into the OpenExO community, working as a consultant before actually taking on the role to help the community to grow. And at that time, when I joined the community, we were maybe about 350 people. That was, I don't know, a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, and we're now just under 7,500. So it's been an interesting journey, growing the community, really helping to engage people around the world in EXO thinking.
Right. That's an interesting profile. And your background, I think you've been leaping from one field to another, huh? So
yeah, I mean, look, absolutely. I'm a big believer in you can be whatever you want to be, and you can do whatever you want to do. And I guess I really took that to heart.
I see. All right, so let's talk about this OpenExO then. But I'd like to start with the basics. When we were having this chat, we kind of talked about exponential organization. Is that something that maybe we should define first? What is an exponential organization?
Perfect. So I mean, an exponential organization is one that embraces the EXO attributes, which are defined in the book Exponential Organizations, and those attributes start with what we call a massive transformative purpose, or an MTP, and so every exponential organization has a massive transformative purpose. Just to take one or two steps back, how did this model come about? Well, Salim Ismail, who's the chairman at OpenExO, together with some other very smart people, spent a couple of years researching organizations that were outpacing their competitors, organizations that were doing things differently and really getting crazy results, growing massively. And they asked, well, what is it that these organizations are doing? And this is how the EXO model came about. So it's not something that's theoretical. It's very practical from organizations that are that exist today. So every one of those organizations has a massive transformative purpose. And then there are attributes which allow organizations to look at the outside world and tap into the abundance that's out there, because we must remember that inside any organization, you only have finite resources, whether
Right.
it's finite resource of people, finite resources, of equipment, if you're a manufacturer, finite resources. So outside of your organization is the entire world, right?
Correct.
And so the scale attributes say, well, how do you leverage the outside world? How do you tap into the abundance of the outside world? So organizations that are using staff on demand, using community and crowd, taking their data and turning
Right.
it to algorithms, using leveraged assets, and really engaging their communities,
Mhm.
are able to to be more exponential. And then on the other side of things is, yes, you may tap into abundance in the outside world, but how do you manage that abundance internally?
Right.
And that's the other 5 attributes, which are the ideas attributes, which stand for you have really good interfaces, you use dashboards, you look at experimentation, autonomy for your teams, as well as looking at social tools inside your organization. So how do you decrease the latency of communication? So that's the EXO model. It comes from experience looking at fast-growing companies that that are sort of outstripping the old guard people who are running businesses very much based on 20th century principles. And that's what it's all based on. I mean, there's one of our community members and a sort of I guess a Silicon Valley sort of a hero in essence, but not really well known, is a guy called David Rose, and he made a statement that any organization that is built for the 20th century is essentially doomed for failure in the 21st. And that's a very tough statement. We don't want to scare people with things like that, but people do need to realize that if you're not tapping into not only these technologies, but these different ways of thinking about business and the way you're running your business, you're really missing out.
Yeah, and David could actually be stating facts, because the way I see it, you mentioned earlier that it's not just theoretical, it's more like practical and empirical, because it's based on the successes of existing organization, right? How they grow exponentially. And I guess the word open there is more about collaboration. It's like you're sharing the best practices and innovations around different organizations or across the globe. I assume it's international. That's how I see it. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, absolutely. So if we actually look at the history of of our global community, it's it actually, I mean, as I said, it starts all with Exponential Organizations, the book. So I mean, if you're listening to this conversation, you've never read Exponential Organizations, I would say grab a copy of it, or wait a couple months. The second version will we're hoping it'll be out on in the middle of 2021. But we the book is written, and then what happens is people say, wow, this is really groundbreaking. But if I'm running an organization, what do I do? Like, what do I do on Monday? Like, how do I implement this? And that resulted in the creation of a consulting company, and it was very much based off of EXO. So everyone was staff on demand, so coming in and out of different projects, and we just realized that if we were going to make the most impact, and our MTP is transform the world for a better future, if we're going to do that, we realized, wait a minute, we need to like make this radically open. We need to give everybody the tools to do this, and that's what spearheaded the creation of OpenExO in its current form, which is providing the tools to the community. Our community is pretty collaborative. We have people from 130 countries. and you know, there's certain areas around the world that are growing tremendously. One of which is the Philippines. You know, it's quite a nice story there. I visited the Philippines for the first time with OpenExO.
When was this?
In the end of 2019. So it was November, I think, of 2019, and we had pretty much 3 community members in the Philippines, and I met with one of them, and we went and we spoke to a number of companies around, mainly in Manila. You know, we went around speaking to people. I ran a few workshops for some industry organizations. I went to universities. It was really great. And it actually resulted in me in early 2020 going back to the Philippines and doing some more. And you know, we now have, I don't know, there's like about 300 community members, maybe not 300, but a couple hundred from the Philippines, which is really exciting. Because we truly believe that and Salim has said this many times before, we believe that in this coming decade, every organization will need to be an exponential organization. Right. So if you are not, you know, thinking with EXO principles and really changing your mindset, there are going to be other organizations that are going to come along and are going to do what you do in you know, much more efficiently, in a much better way. And so we're pretty excited about, you know, what's possible, you know. And so our community is working with all sorts of different organizations. It's not only you know, large businesses. We've run initiatives, you know, there've been initiatives run in large companies. There've been initiatives run in small companies. There've been initiatives run with governments, with different cities, which really is exciting.
Right. And you mentioned about your purpose, or your organization's purpose earlier. You know, you made a time frame that within the decade, but I'm guessing that the current pandemic has changed that a bit. How does the current pandemic change that? Did it shorten?
We actually think that the pandemic is moving people towards the future we see more quickly, right? So like you said, we've actually said that this decade is the decade of the EXO. Right. It's the decade where more and more people realize the great potential of technologies, but technology does not actually solve problems in essence. It's about people being able to leverage different technologies that actually make the difference. And so if you run an organization and you do not have like exponential thinking, EXO thinking, people thinking like, what is possible? How do we attain abundance? Then it's very difficult for you to actually then leverage those technologies. And one example I love to use, so I used to work in the pharmaceutical industry. And when I started there as a pharmacist and then moved my way up into sort of more an operational management role, you know, if you think, I mean, of a factories, you know, need a bunch of consumables, right? That people use. People have hair nets and boots on their shoes and coats and all these sorts of things, right? And cleaning materials and all of these consumables. And so when I started there, we literally had a triplicate book, right? A book that you would go and you would fill in. Someone in the department would fill in what they need, and then the manager, me, would go and sign it. And then, you know, the green copy would stay in the department, and the yellow copy would go to the store, and the pink copy would go to finance, right? I mean, that's how things happened. And then we had digital transformation, right? Where we took that book and we made a system, right? We digitized it. So pretty much all we did is still someone went in, they typed in the items, and then they send it for approval, and it was a digital signature, and I signed digitally. And so now there was efficiency there. Most definitely there was
Correct.
efficiency. But if you're thinking exponential, then the system you put in place is very different. Because then you say, okay, what is exponential? Well, how could we leverage algorithms? How could we say, let's take the history of the usage that we've made for the past 5 years, and let's feed that into an algorithm, which then automatically determines how much we need and automatically orders. And then all we do is we tweak that by telling the system, no, actually, I used less this month. I used more this month. I need, and that way, suddenly you have a completely, different, much more efficient system. And that's what we like to call, well, that then becomes exponential transformation, right? Where suddenly, actually, and it takes a change in thinking to allow that, right? And to say, yes, we want to do that. Because maybe someone will say, yeah, but it's someone's job to write down the orders. Yeah, but that's a waste of someone's time. That person could be doing something so much better with their time if we had the system in place. I'm not saying we now must fire that person. And that's what a lot of people are scared of when it comes to technology, right? That it's something that takes jobs. And that's not necessarily the case. It's something that can actually augment jobs. So, I like to use that example of, because so many people are thinking, well, this COVID pandemic has meant we have to, transform digitally. We have to have a lot of digital transformation. But what we're actually saying is digital transformation is actually the ticket to the future. You need to be digital in order to then go exponential. So you need to have that digital layer, but digital transformation actually shouldn't be the end game. Is what we believe.
So it's just one of the components, and there's so much more beyond digitalization that actually comprises exponential growth. So you're saying when we say exponential here, we actually mean exponential.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the point.
Exactly. When you think exponential is very hard for people to think, right? To actually comprehend, because we think so linearly, like 1, 2, 3, because that's our world, right? Like time is linear, like the way we function is linear. So, but if and the thing that is quite difficult is as humans we get very used to something. Here's my phone here. This thing has 102 megapixel camera. Right now, it's actually crazy to think that it was only 15 years ago that phones never had cameras, and digital cameras were there, but they were 2 and 3 and 4 megapixels, and that was like a full-on camera, right? So that is like rapidly exponential, and so right now, we have so many technologies that are on curves that are exponential in nature. So, I don't know if the people who watch this know about Moore's law, for example. Like Moore's law has been around for a very long time. And Gordon Moore, who was one of the founders of Intel, said every 18 months to 24 months, the number of transistors on a chip is doubling, right? So that means your computing power was doubling pretty much every 2 years. And since 1970 odd until today, this is the case because technologies are improving. And now that doubling pattern, of course, is exponential. When 1 becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 8, becomes 16, that's when you see that exponential growth. And we're seeing that now in many, many technologies. So whether it's the way robotics works, the weight that drones can carry, the price of solar power, the different materials you can 3D print, the
artificial intelligence.
AI's ability, genome sequencing. the first genome was sequenced, only 10 years ago for a couple $1 billion.
Yep.
And you can now sequence your whole genome for $399. Well, in the US, I mean, and next year it'll probably be 199, and the year after that it'll probably be 99. And the interesting thing is so you have all these technologies, and a lot of them you can actually bring together, because what happens when you bring the blockchain and robotics and and genome sequencing together? Well, what does that look like? Maybe that looks like a toilet that reads your genome when you go to the toilet. And I know that sounds like
that's very crazy,
maybe a bit crazy, but the thing is many of the technologies that are out there can actually do things that as society we're not really ready for.
True.
And so, what we really think, within the OpenExO community is, well, if you can understand how an exponential organization works, the actual organizational parts of it, that then allows you to be a lot more open to leveraging the technologies, versus being concerned about those technologies, or trying to embrace the technologies, but still thinking in a very 20th century way. And this is why you see, many organizations try to implement new technologies and they fail, right? Because they haven't made the ground ready for that ground ready for the seeds to be planted. It's like they're almost planting those seeds on concrete and then expecting it to grow. But you need to nurture, which is the mindset of the leadership in companies, but everyone within any organization actually needs to embrace that sort of thinking.
Yep, and they have to prepare themselves as well when it comes to executing these exponential change. And thanks for bringing me there, because my next question is about MTP. You mentioned about MTP, and that means massive transformative purpose. Is that right?
That's right.
That's basically the core. If you are doing some sort of an exponential activity, an OpenExO activity, without exposing much detail about MTP, how does it play? What is its role in terms of achieving exponential growth?
Yeah, perfect. So an MTP is really pivotal, because it provides the organization with a guiding light, a North Star, right? To say, this is what we want to achieve as an organization. And what that then does is it allows you to galvanize community. It allows you to attract great talent. It allows you to, it's really pivotal in actually implementing the different EXO attributes. So the EXO attribute of autonomy, for example, that's allowing teams to be, autonomous, working on their own. How can you do that if you don't all agree on an MTP? Right. You all know where you're going, right?
Correct.
And so that's really where MTP fits in. Now, many organizations out there will have vision statements and mission statements and values, right? Now, vision statements, mission statements, and values absolutely have a place, right? And they need to dovetail with a massive transformative purpose. An MTP is the way we see it. So what it definitely isn't is it isn't a mission statement or a how to. So an MTP wouldn't be creating the best SaaS platform. Like that wouldn't be an MTP. Because it's not really massive, it's not transformative, it's very transactional in its nature. Whereas looking at something like ours is transform the world for a better future, right? So it's massive, it's transformational, but other other MTPs, for example, like giving humanity a place to belong.
Those are really huge. Those are really massive.
It's like huge, right? And so it's about creating an atmosphere within an organization that people like want to achieve what is set out in front of them.
Right.
And
I mean, just hearing it, you definitely want to move forward.
Yeah.
Just right after hearing that specific purpose. So that's what MTP is. Now,
Yes.
Kevin, please, let's now try to maybe my last question will be, how can people join this community? Because it really is interesting, and I'm assuming, and I believe that a lot of our audience would also like to understand more about it, to get to know more about it and join the community. How can people do that?
Perfect. So essentially, it's as simple as going to openexo.com, and on openexo.com there is a tab called community, and clicking on that takes you to a join the community. The community is open, and there's no cost to join the community. It's there's no sort of barriers or anything like that to join. So it's really as simple as heading over to openexo.com and clicking join. But really, where individuals will get the most benefit is actually by embracing the tools, right? So when you join, you can for example go through a foundations course, right? Which is it's a video course it's available on for free to go through the materials, so you can actually go through all those materials and get that understanding. You then can also interact with people, right? Because really at the end of the day, it's by participating that you actually get the most out of. So it's there, it's open, and the awesome thing is it is global. So I mean, we have people from 130 countries, many of whom are collaborating across the world. And we have had community members that were mainly focusing on consulting, but whilst working within the community, have actually teamed up with other community members to form startups, which is quite exciting. People who are passionate about education are focusing there, and people who are passionate about sustainability are focusing there, and people who are passionate about the circular economy. Because the one thing that is really great about the EXO model is it's not one that sort of is used instead of other models. It's quite a meta model, right? So if you're an organization and you're using like the scaling up methodology, or you're using a business model canvas, or you're using design thinking, you're using lean, all of those actually work within the EXO framework, right? So the attribute of experimentation, well, lean works perfectly for the attribute of experimentation. Build, measure, learn works perfectly there. The process of design thinking also fits very much into your experimentation side of things. So it's not like to look at implementing EXO in your organization means you need to stop whatever you're doing. No, it's actually like finding an additional layer that actually helps you to make sure that when you are scaling, or when you are using these other frameworks, that you're doing it in a way that's going to help you to leverage exponentiality, right? It's helping you to not build a sort of very linear organization.
Exactly, because I assume there's a lot of sharing of best practices that's happening in the community.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine people thinking of exponential growth being on the same community altogether.
Yeah.
I can just imagine how strong type of a support system that could be. Now, I'd like to thank you for your time and for sharing those information with us about OpenExO. I feel like there's so much more that many people would like to know about it, and from what you're saying, they can just join the community and probably take the foundations course, because that's for free, and that's where they
Yeah.
can understand a lot more about the organization, the purpose, what MTP is, and a whole lot more. I'd like to give you at least a brief couple of minutes to add if there's anything you'd like to add, Kevin.
Yeah, no, I mean, just to end off to say that, look, I mean, the future is absolutely bright. I know we're in a tough spot right now. I know. I mean, like the Philippines has been like really strict. I know people in who are in long distance relationships
True.
in the Philippines, and getting in and out has been impossible. And
Right.
and you know, I'm originally South African, and I've been out of South Africa. The only way for me to get back in is to get tested, and like all this paperwork.
bunch
it's
of
like not
stuff.
easy, right? And so it's very easy to be despondent. And we've also gone through a lot of populism happening, and world politics may be looking a bit blurry. I mean climate change is a massive issue that's bearing down on us if we think the pandemic is bad. But the positive thing is that we do have amazing technologies. We do have ways of building organizations that can leverage that. So I'm super excited about the future. I'm really excited to see what happens around exponential organizations, and really excited actually to see what actually happens in the Philippines, because I've traveled there. It's a beautiful place, but quite traditional in its practices. So really looking forward to seeing some changes there. But thanks so much for having me, letting me share, and all the best on your end.
Thank you, Kevin, and then I hope to have another chat with you again soon. But in the meantime, I'd like again to thank you and to thank all our audience for watching this. You can just go to openexo.com. Is that the website correct, Kevin? For more information about it and to join the community. Thanks again, and bye for now.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Basta loan, global dominion.
Loan, global dominion.
Basta loan, global dominion.
Stallone, Global Dominion.
Stallone, Global Dominion.
Stallone, Global Dominion. Stallone, Global Dominion.